Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name's StepsBasic, and welcome back to my community show. So, I thought about making this video as another story time video, but I figured this one, while definitely being a story time video, will also entail a bit of information. So, a little bit of me giving you information about stuff. So, scams. We know them, we love them. In every sense of the we do not love them way. We have probably, every single one of us, received a scam call at some point or another, or a scam email, or some sort of a scam bait thing. And yes, even my friends have gone into the panic. They've received like text messages from somebody and they got all excited and like, oh my God, this person has been kidnapped. We need to go help them, sort of thing. Scams are everywhere and they suck. Now, me, of course, bearing in mind that with the last three videos, last three story times, and this one included, you're probably not going to believe this too much, but I am not a dumb person. Yes, I will admit that I do stupid things from time to time, things I just don't think about, and I just do. And honestly, how many of us out there can claim that they haven't ever done something stupid? And yes, that includes almost falling victim to two scams. Now, when I say almost fell victim to the two scams, I will admit that this means that they held my attention for longer than 10 minutes. Now, unfortunately, being that I am an intelligent person, obviously, I'm going to think a lot about the fact that, I'm smart. These people can't get a hold of me. They can't screw me over. They can't trick me into doing things. No, I'm smart. Which makes it all the more embarrassing to tell you that I almost get a little bit of coffee in my mustache. Which makes it all the more embarrassing for me to admit that I almost got scammed twice. Now, let's start off with the first one, and the one that I think was quite possibly the most painful. Now, shortly after, and by shortly after I mean like maybe a year or so after my wife and I separated, it was a pretty bad time for me. I was sad most of the time, and to be fair, still kind of am sad most of the time, but for different reasons. But now, I was lonely, and I still am lonely, yes, but this was prime opportunity for a person to strike. The iron is hot, as they say. Look at this sad, lonely man over here. And so, I got a friend request on Facebook from a lovely-looking young lady who, according to her profile, was also friends with about three other my friends, so I'm not the only lonely. So I just approved it without even thinking about it. I got a friend request, approve, whatever. Whatever. It never really happens, but, since then I have actually sent it that, I'm very much more frugal about who I added on my friends list and whatnot. So bear that in mind, because, well, I still get a lot of scam baiting friend requests on Facebook. And honestly, nowadays I'm like, if I get a friend request on there, I'm thinking, okay, who are you trying to scam today? But anyway, that's not the important part. The important part is this young, lovely-looking young lady, and by young I do, of course, mean within the age of consent, above the age of 20. Her profile said she was 22, I think, and at the time I was 26, 27, something like that, so it wasn't a creepy little age difference, but it was, still weird, considering that I didn't know who the person was, and they were, suddenly started messaging me on the thing, the Facebook. And of course, okay, I'm going to be cordial and just talking to this person. And bear in mind, this is not the first time I've encountered scam discussions. And so I start dropping the usual questions, to see if this is a bot. And no, it's not a bot. They're actually replying in time and with, human reaction. So it's not like, oh, I'm just talking to a bot. So, I didn't have to dismiss that. Dismiss the person automatically, which, is probably what they were doing. Some guy over there in wherever, on the other side of the country, or other side of the world, talking to me in probably a smelly little apartment complex, because that's where all scammers live, in the smelly little apartment complexes, the darkness. Imagine sitting there in front of their laptop like, hey, I'm getting this guy, yeah. And I'm over here like talking to him, okay, whatever. And this is what got me. Now, as a man, I'm not used to getting compliments or any sort of endearing remarks, and especially after going through the rocky breakup that was my marriage, I'm sitting here thinking to myself, this person just called me darling. Wow. I felt warm in the face. I feel like I've been drinking or something. No, no, of course not. But bear that, put that in your back of your head. That's how they got me. This is what's commonly referred to as a loneliness scam. So I'm hearing these affectations and flirtatious behavior, and of course we're asking questions like, oh, what's your favorite book, sort of thing. Oh, I like this book. I'm a writer. I'm trying to be a writer. You know. I remember it was kind of funny though, a little bit of a tip me off sort of thing, where I don't remember how the subject came up, but I was like, yeah, I'm not really looking to be rich. I just kind of want to be comfortable, you know, screw having to worry about money for the rest of my life. Not rich, but being able to say, hey, I want that, I'll buy that, sort of thing, you know, and I don't really want to be rich, and they came back with, oh, why don't you want to be rich? And I'm like, well, because money's just problems. Money's just a headache waiting to happen. And the back on the topic of the favorite book sort of thing, they said that their favorite book was a book called Rich Dad Poor Dad, something like that. And I looked it up, and it's this kind of get rich quick scheme book that you can buy and put money into the wallet of the person who, you know, is actually enacting their own get rich quick scheme by, you know, getting rubes to pay for their get rich quick scheme. And I'm like, oh. You're one of those types of people. And it eventually got to the point where we exchanged phone numbers, and they called me, and you know, chit chatted. It was kind of like to the point where it was like, I don't think you're a real person. I doubt you're a real person. I literally said that, and then they called me, and then they're like, oh yeah, look, see, you hear my voice, you know I'm a real person now. I'm like, well, I know you're a real person, but that doesn't mean you're not faking it. And then they started asking for gifts, and I fully intended to get their address and send them like some useless trinket from around the house. Like, actually, funny enough, we just made a Christmas tree out of a pine cone. I love the thing, but I'm like, I'll send this, a sentimental token. They want something rich and expensive. I'm going to send them cheap but very, very cherished. I decided not to for the best part, and that was about where that scam ended, because I basically just was like, you know, I'm not sending you anything. I'm sorry. I told you I'm poor. I ain't got no money to send you anything. And that was where it ended, you know. They're like, oh, this person ain't got no money or ain't gonna bite. So okay, whatever. They moved on. Hopefully whoever that person is either got out of the scam baiting business, or, you know, found somebody to marry, and then they're not, because it was a real woman. It wasn't the sweaty person I was imagining in the darkness of the thing, or at least they might have still had a, you know, a dark, sweaty apartment, but they weren't the person I was imagining. It was actually a woman, or a person with a fairly decent voice changer back in whatever year that was. So there was that one. They're obviously scam bait, preying on the loneliness I felt and whatnot. Now, in this situation, I made one mistake. Well, believing the affectations was a mistake too, but harmless mistake. Whereas I made one fairly actually bad mistake where I gave them my phone number, which I still have, by the way. I haven't changed that phone number. Now, bear in mind, that's probably a reason why I get a whole bunch of scam calls on occasions, but for the most part, I haven't heard from her again. And that's an important lesson to learn for all these situations, is never give your personal information. Now, I've been watching a lot of scam baiting people online lately, including Kip Boga. I watch Jim Browning, Pierogi, and Atomic Shrimp. All four pretty good scam bait, pretty good scam baiters. And it's fairly interesting, intelligent, and fun to watch, entertaining. Atomic Shrimp is probably my favorite, but, you know, go check them out if you're ever interested in like how these are done, how their scam baiting is done. But like, that's where I've been learning a lot of stuff from. Now, I myself, I'm looking at these things like, yeah, these are fairly obvious lessons, but obviously scams don't work because a person is too smart to oversee it. Scams work because they hit you at just the right point. You get caught at just the right point, like being lonely after a divorce or after a breakup. You get a contact from an attractive young person of your desired gender, and you're like, oh, okay, whatever. And you're just lonely, and you just want to talk to somebody, and then it's like, okay. Now, like I said, I say I was almost scammed by this person because, for the most part, throughout the entire conversation, I was like pretty sure that this wasn't a person like really interested in me. I mean, for one thing, I had a pretty low self-esteem, still do, but at the time, it generally led to, yeah, this person isn't attracted to you. What are you talking about? You're nuts. And so I was like, oh, whatever. But they had my attention for more than 10 minutes. In fact, I think that one lasted for about 3 days of me just talking back and forth with them. And in the end, it's just like, okay, nothing happened. But then comes the quite possibly the more nefarious one, and the only reason I really fell for this one, or at least got to the point where I almost fell for this one, was because I was distracted. My daughter and I were going to the beach, and we're going to have a fun time, and we're excited, and I go to the 7-Eleven there to get some sunblock and whatnot, and I got a phone call just as soon as we got back in the car, and the person's like, hi, this is the FBI. We're here calling about it was the IRS, not the FBI. It was the IRS called me, and they're like all talking like, oh, it's the IRS calling about some fraudulent activity. Back tax payments that I owed, and being fully disabled Navy veteran, I don't pay taxes because I don't have an income. All my income comes from the government, and the government's not going to tax themselves. Like, hey, I'm going to take my money out of money. I'm going to take my money out of my money? Yeah, that doesn't make any sense. They're just going to give me what I'm owed and then hold the taxes for themselves. You know what I mean? So, as a fully disabled Navy vet, I don't pay taxes. So, naturally, this caught my attention because I'm like, wait a minute. Is somebody using my identity to file taxes or something? And so we have a little bit of back and forth. We're talking about, like, dude, this is not me, obviously. And the guy kept insisting that it was me, which was his first mistake. Because he didn't maybe suppose that there was some sort of identity theft. No, he insisted that it was me. And, of course, the IRS wouldn't know exactly if it was me. All they would know is that it was somebody using my information. But he insisted it was me. It was definitely me. And we're going back and forth. He's like, oh, we're going to send the police over to you. And I'm like, error number 2. They're not going to send the police after you. Remember this. Doesn't matter what they say. You're not getting arrested for your taxes. You're going to get fines and probably a court date, but you're not getting arrested. They're not sending the cops to your door to arrest you. But at the time I was distracted, and I was thinking about the fact that somebody was stealing my identity. And that's how they got me. Because I wasn't thinking about the obvious problems with it. So, I'm on the phone with this guy. My voice is going. My blood pressure's rising. I'm getting annoyed. I'm getting anxious. And we drive back to the house. And screw the beach day. I send Lizzie inside while I'm talking to him outside. And then I'm waiting. Then it clicks in my brain. Oh, wait. Where do I live? And he tells me my address, which was bad. I didn't like the fact that he knew my address. But then I turned around and I'm like, okay, what's my social security number? And he's like, sir, because this is an unsecured line and blah, 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 because we're recording this, I cannot state your social security number. And I'm like, I am waiving my right to that protection and giving you the full permission to tell me what my social security number is. And that was it. That was the end of the scam. He's like, well, if you don't believe that I'm really the IRS, then I'm going to be sending the police to your house right now, and now you just wait for them. And I'm like, okay. And then he hung up. I'm like, okay. Like I said, he had my attention for about 10 minutes, a little bit more than 10 minutes, but it was enough It was just enough. Now, I didn't fall for the scams, luckily, but they had me on the line for long enough, and it made me nervous, and I don't like that. Now, ever since then, I have actually been looking into a lot more of the scamming stuff, and I figured it'd be a good idea to come on here and warn people about it. Now, there are so many scams out there: dating site scams, loneliness scams, the pay in advance scams, IRS tax scams, frauds, FBI criminal investigation frauds. There are so many different scams out there where there are people out there preying on mostly elderly, which is funny, but also younger people, in their early adult years from 18 to like 25. They're preying on people who, the elderly, have the most money, and the young people who are easier to trick. And so they're preying on them. Us, people who earn our money. Sometimes they use weird things like your own empathy, like, oh, there's this person who's trying to escape a war-torn country to get to your country, and they won't tell you what country you're in, but they'll be like, oh, I'm trying to move to your country, and I need somebody I trust who can watch out for my money there, and you're like, you can trust me, I'm a good guy, I'm a good person, and you're like, yeah, heck yeah. So therein lies one thing: never trust something that seems too good. I have a large dollar amount, and in a locked account number, and I need somebody with a similar name who I can transfer this to. So we'll split the money half and half, and we just need to get the money out of the bank, or this person's not going to claim it; it's going to go to a corrupt government official, something like that. Anything with a large dollar amount where they're promising you half and half, that's obviously a scam, right? Nothing too good's going to happen to people like you and me. We're not ever going to get a good break like that. And then there are going to be other things. It's like, shoot, what was the other one? Like, anytime they ask you for any of your vital information, your name, where you live, your social security number, routing number, banking number, a bank account number, country of origin even. And I've said this before in another video, but don't give your information out online. Not even your name. Definitely not your phone number, your house number, or anything like that. Because even if they can't scam the money out of you, they'll start to make threats at you. They can send like pictures and stuff on the internet and call you up in the middle of the night and like be like, I'm gonna murder you. Stuff like that, and harass you for the rest of your life. Or at least until they get bored and want to do something else. Or you change your number and move. So it's like, don't even give them any of that information. And like I said, they knew my address. And I don't know how they know my address, because I don't tell people my address. And I'm assuming that one of my accounts somewhere, like my Facebook or something, may have my address on it. Or they went to public records and got a hold of my information there. I don't know. And it's very annoying. And I hate that I don't know how they got that. But, never volunteer this stuff. For one thing, your bank knows it. Any bank, your bank knows it, and well, the FBI knows it, the IRS knows it. They all know this information, so they don't need to ask you for it. And another thing to remember is to know your rights. You can waive any responsibility, like I said in that video, in that situation with the guy on the phone. I waived my protection of my social security number so that he could tell me. I gave him full permission as the owner of that social security number for him to tell me what my social security number was, but he didn't know it. Therefore, he couldn't tell me, even though I gave him permission to. So know your rights. That's one of them. Another one is they're not going to send the police to your door to arrest you. For failing to do that. And they're not going to use you as some sort of a tool in a criminal investigation. Like, I think the one I've heard the most or seen the most was like, oh, we found a car registered in your name at the border of Mexico filled with 10 tons of cocaine and stuff like that. Or something more plausible like that. I'd say the best and final lesson that I've taken away is, if you were ever in doubt about whether or not what they're saying is true, contact the people who they pretend to be. So you get a phone call saying, I'm the IRS. You are in dereliction of your payments. I'm going to be like, okay, sorry, I can't really talk right now. Call me back in about half an hour. Hang up, call the IRS. Report the number to the scam department. Or even just say, hey, did you guys just call me? And they'll be like, no, sorry, brah. Or, I know you're probably not going to be able to get a hold of the FBI or something like that, but for the most part, you could call up to the FBI and report the number that you just got a call from, and they'll be able to tell you whether or not that was somebody investigating you or not. Call your bank. If they say they've kidnapped one of your family members, hang up and call your family member. And if they purport to be one of your family members, know what your family members sound like. And one thing I do want to say is that like Atomic Shrimp actually said it in one of his videos, and I feel like it bears repeating, as it were. Scammers don't win because they're targeting stupid people. Scammers don't win because they're targeting dishonest people. Scammers don't win because they're targeting, well, they win because they hit the proper opportunity. They take a shotgun blast of emails, text messages, phone calls, and they just blast it out on the web or against a whole bunch of people and wait until somebody picks up the line. Like a good example, I've been getting mass text messages where I'll get a text message tied with 19 different numbers and all one message. 19 people in sequence will get the exact same message. That is very obviously a scam. But one of those 19 other people are going to click that link. Yeah. That's another lesson. Don't click links in emails or text messages. Don't. It's phishing. At the very least, it'll pop up a believable website page where they will steal your information as you try to log in. At the very worst, it might install malware onto your computer or phone or whatever. But anyway, that's the kind of lesson I wanted to give is scams happen. And it's best to be wary of them. Like, I want my phone back. I want to be able to get a phone call and not be like, okay, is this a scammer today or not? And unfortunately, in today's era, robocalls are just coming left and right and left and right and left and right and whatnot. And you can have fun with them. You can report the numbers. But at the end of the day, just protect yourself and be careful out there. Because even smart people can get scammed from time to time, or at least almost get scammed from time to time. But yeah, anyway, apart from all that, lesson over, and story time's done. So announcements, we're going on to start the DLC this week for Borderlands 3, and once we're done with that, we're going to be starting up with BioShock 2. So yeah. That's all really the announcements I have. I'm still working on that big project. I can finally get the game that I want to do it with, so woo. But anyway, apart from all that, that's going to be it for me tonight. Thank y'all so much for joining me for this episode of The Community Show. Hopefully you enjoyed it, and if you did, please go and poke that like button for me. If you'd like to see more from me, make sure to hit that subscribe button. And of course, as always, you're more than welcome to leave a comment in the comment section down below, and get back to you as soon as I can. And when I can, if I can, you know all that jazz. And tune in next time for another topic at another time. And until then, good night.